Hi everyone, it's Maria from Jadot La Papier. I am back with a flip through of a journal that's very different from what I normally make. It's an open spine book. You know how I love my field guides and my garden journals. Well, I tried to embrace my very grungy side, which doesn't actually exist. So it took me a long time to learn how to do this, figure it out. Not the binding. This is actually a binding that I do a lot, which is a French link and Coptic stitch on the inside of my covered books. And then I cover it with mull and then the spine, and usually this spine here is floating. So without the spine made me a little nervous, but I figured, I know it's meant to be grungy, it's meant to be a garden book, and it's actually titled Sessile's Garden and Seed. And Sessile is a character that I've created. I don't do this often, but I've been obsessed with elves lately, so for those who aren't elf fans or fae folklore fans, this might not be for you, but it is made up of mostly antique pages, plus a lot of grungy, torn up paper bags and things that you would normally use outside. But I did embroider the cover. Oh, this is a seed packet or seed book that comes with it that actually has, I'll show you later, but seed packets that you can create, decorate yourself in case you're one who likes to share seeds with your friends. I share seeds with neighbors and friends all the time. So this is an antique book. It was an old science book, physiology book, and it has children's writing all over it, so I saved it. I cleaned it up a lot, disinfected it, and then I only sealed the edges to keep it from fraying further. And then I embroidered on it, which took me a lot longer than I expected just because the board is so thick. So these are snowdrops, and this is a sign that it's time to start gardening. And this story takes place in Cornwall, in southwest of England. And the characters live along a river that actually empties into the ocean, into the, I think, Indian Sea. So it actually has a climate similar to here in the Northwest. It's a maritime climate. So I might have actually used some pages from my Maritime Northwest gardening guide, which gives you some time slots as to when you can start sowing seeds and when to harvest. Here's the inside of the book. These were the original first pages, as you can see. It was written in by John Shepard, Michigan, it looks like. And there's more writing here. And these are, cleaned up, but the original frayed pages. And on the inside cover, I think he drew either a turkey or an ostrich. I couldn't tell, and I didn't have the heart to cover it up. And in addition to his name, so there's John Shepard, there's someone named Mary at the very bottom. It might be hard to see. I'll try to zoom. There's my stitches. So I just covered it up with a little bit of wax paper, dyed wax paper, and then on the inside is actually a kitchen or apron pocket. And this apron pocket is meant to be not necessarily a kitchen or cooking apron, but a garden apron. And these are the primary human characters in the book. Their names are Aunt Sadie and Nina. I don't have an exact year, but I'm going to guess it's roughly the same time, which is, I'm placing this story around the 1940s, but it actually starts way, maybe centuries before. So it starts off looking like it belongs to Aunt Sadie and Nina. There's a pocket where they know that it's time to start getting ready for spring when they start to see the daffodils. This pocket has another seed pocket or pocket where you can keep some of your information, but it also has a book page for woodland blossoms because their property, again, is along the river bank, the Tamar River in Cornwall. Book pages are actually Pierre-Joseph Rodotet. So if not this one, there's also a British wildflowers book that I've used. I'll try to show that in the end. So a couple of the flowers they know that they'll be tending to in the spring. The bulbs will be up, and then they're starting to plan their kitchen garden. So you'll find book pages here. What is this? A measurement corkscrew thread measurement pages, and then some not antique but 1954 French papers that you can actually write on in the back, and it has the original pin right there. And a leaf to represent the two ladies. And of course, you know, in the garden or in the home, cleanliness is a must. So there's your back pocket there. And in this open spine, you can see there's no muslin or mull sealing it together, but there is that leather strap trying to give it strength. So it does come with this eco-dyed and hand-stitched cover. This hand stitching is actually Sigita coffee stains. I bought some eco-dyed and some fabrics from her, and it had a natural tab, and to me it looks like the layout of a garden, of a kitchen garden or backyard garden for your vegetables and fruits. What I did was I made it into a refillable travel notebook. So right now it's just full of Dutch paper. Actually, this paper might come from Norway. It's Dutch paper by way of Norway. You can replace that. It's super soft. And then there's the inside there. And then I just have it like this towards the edge because this paper is actually, oh boy, they're gardening outside or tearing up the neighbor's yard outside. It's a notebook. That was the old spelling in 1792. It's French, cahier or cahier notebook, and it's data entry of products. And it's actually rare. It's double-sided. I got this from Miab, a brown paper parcel. Look at all that beautiful calligraphy and writing. And on about halfway through, it actually turns upside down. So there's a lot of paper for you. It's not quite cotton rag, but it's the most awesome paper if you love using dip ink or fountain pen. And then at the point that you turn it upside down, I'll try to do this slowly so I don't knock my camera, you can turn left-handed and start reading the rest of the entries, and there's your date, 1792, right up there. So, and then of course, I love my antique, authentic papers. It's from a railroad company, and there's the other side of that cover, also Cahier. Product entry, and there's a beautiful blue stamp. Okay, so let's turn this around. The story actually begins with an old oak tree in Ireland. It's not known when, but the legend says that a few hundred years ago, Mother Nature split open an oak tree and an elf came out. So this is a little bit about Irish and Scottish folklore in the Scottish Highlands. So that's just a little bit of background. But again, I named the Sessile, or Sessile, depending on the language you're using, his garden and seeds. So I'm going to put that title there. And this is actually a digital of him as a young forest guardian elf. So he used to be a forager before he came into this family. So it's just in the back there. And the reason he came into this family was because the father at the time, who's French, came into the forest in Ireland to follow home. So he just felt like he was home with this man. So he followed him home to Great Britain, to the English wife. And so here are the hills, book pages. And here's a little bit of information about Great Britain fairies. Again, this story is in Cornwall, so southwest. So it's just kind of fun. I didn't want to go full-on elf or fairy in this journal yet because it's just, I think, the introduction to probably many stories or books that I might be making, just because I think I want to live in their world, I think. Antique British wildflower book pages that I used, and this is an older Sessile. He's now at the family farm. It's about 2 acres, mostly vegetables, fruits, and obviously lots of wildflowers along the river bank. They're more on the south end of the river. Clarify. But there's something on the back. So this is an altered paper clip. You can hide him. And then there are these antique French pages that you can write on. No pen, but there's some sort of a glue there. But again, the same awesome cotton paper originals. I don't see a year here, but probably safe to say, since I got the pack roughly the same time, 1700s. That was paper clipped. Is another one of the British wildflowers, and then a book page or part of the story along the river bank from the book The Wind in the Willows. So I think the description here, you know, the green turf sloped down towards the edge, towards the edge, the tree lined along the river. It just describes it. This is actually about Rat and Toad, I think one of their many adventures. But I think it's just very telling of the countryside along the river. This page is about planning out the whole kitchen garden for them. So here's your first packet of empty seeds, but it's a larger pack, and I just covered it with one of these vegetable vintage posters. A little tab area so you can label what your seeds are. And then in the back, I gave you a plot of what their property looks like. So if this is the river that's flowing down into the ocean, they have a east-westerly situation of their house, so they get full sun all day long. So here's a sunrise to sunset. Follows the river down into the ocean, and that's why you're probably wondering, why isn't there a flower or a shovel here? Well, it's because a lot of the birds are dropping a lot of the shells as they open them, the seagulls. Here's a house, herb garden, turnips, potatoes, tomatoes, lettuce, spinach. In the front, it's more welcoming. So front path with bulbs, and then your cherry trees and your apple trees here. So a lot of blossoms in late spring. Peach trees and more. So that's that, but you could actually plan it yourself for your garden. I've given you one of these vintage engineering layouts, and they look like beds to me. So if you have vegetable or flower beds in your garden, you can actually go ahead and label your different vegetable boxes, raised boxes, with what seeds you're packing. French paper, because I love it, with chores or designing your edible landscape. Even if it's hand-drawn and you know what you need and you know what the sunset and the hours are like. So this page here is all about excuse me, all about the seeds. I'd like this layout just like with my Dior journal last. I had the different fabrics laying out. I just put a ticket on the back so that you could hitch it. There's 2 blank seed packets that you could still, but I did put some supplies in here like tickets, labels, stamps, or if you want to share seeds with someone, you can label it with your own. Some handmade paper. These vintage advertisements or seed catalog covers on them, but the other one might have supplies too. And this paper right here, I eco-dyed using, what is it, the pomegranate skin? Vintage, or no, it's actually antique, from the mid-1800s French ledger paper. So you can still see some of the marks through the eco-dyeing. Some of the trees that you might want to plant, home fruit garden, you know, as I lined the front, the approachway to the front door. Different vegetables and herbs that you might want to put into your boxes, and then of course writing on the back. So this is just some vintage French paper from Sarah, and then this is actually an antique ledger, portion of an antique French ledger from a wine merchant. Seed pocket with some tips on what types of flowers to plant to attract certain good beneficial insects. Of course, we need things to be. Portion of the almanac page gives you some April chores and what you can actually start harvesting in April, and then what you could start to do around the house in the kitchen or bring into the house. And other chores and tasks. Another covered paper clip, that's actually a tab, so you can move your tabs about. Another empty seed pocket. And then this next page here layout is actually another antique French document. It was probably a property document. So I'm going to remove the tab, open that up, and it does have its original foxing. I have Cloroxed the top and dried it in the sun. And don't be afraid of the center. This is actually handmade paper in the middle. But when I glued it down, the dyes that formed the paper just kind of, not bled, but definitely stuck to this antique paper. So what I did was, you know how we're always trying to find ways to protect our pressed flowers. I either used our plastic wrap that comes with our products, you know, this, or I used some of my slides, printable slides, and cut them up, and then I glued the different slide frames, or the negatives of the things that I was cutting out, the die cuts that I was using, the tickets and the window frames, etc. Then just find the corner. I tried to put a piece of paper near the opening to slide your paper or your tag or your pressed flower behind there. Most of them, though, are open on the sides, the opposite sides. So left, open on the left. And it's nice and tight so that things can remain pressed. And then opening is on the right for these, and I just put some fabric there. And then this is empty, and this one lifts a little bit more. Since it's on the bottom, I didn't tape down the bottom. I just used double-sided tape for these. And if I close that up, the year it was made, or the year the document was signed, I went to clean it up. So, and then just some more information on what you might want to place in your beds, more tulips. And then, since he has moved to London and his owner, or the family he followed, the man is actually a scholar, so he teaches and travels a lot, so he likes to keep little pieces of the man's travels. Actually, I forgot to say in the beginning, the reason, especially this elf, this garden elf actually came to the family, was he knew someday the women would need help. So Aunt Sadie is actually a widow. So I don't know if you noticed her black dress. And that's her niece who came to live with her, because Aunt Sadie actually has 2 children, a boy and a girl, and you might see representation of them in the book here. Ideas for you. And then this is actually, I forget who painted it, but it is an antique painting in the public domain. I printed it to cotton eye paper, and then I covered it with gel matte medium to give it a very dry, rough, almost truly oil painting like texture when it dried. And it actually has that new thickness, and it's also waterproof now, so it feels awesome. It feels like a real canvas. On the inside, this is her daughter, and I'm going to say her name's Molly, and she likes to play with the neighbor boys and count the pigs and get in the mud. As you can see, she is in the wildflowers. There's the property, and the wildflowers actually follow the riverbank, just outside the main house line where the vegetables are. And then a little story about her resolve and flowers and different flowers that they might be planting as well. French envelope. Other side. So if you know elves, this is actually a brownie elf. In Fae folklore, they're all considered fairies, whether they're elves, gremlins, or toadstools, or different trooping high fairies. They're all fairies. And Sessile is a brownie, so he's considered a house elf, but he was born of the forest of the oak tree, and so he's more of a nature protector. So he can actually go from the house to the garden. So he actually does both, and all he asks in return are for a few crumpets. This is actually just a little hand painting or sketch and paint that I did at Pike Place Market, but it's a crumpet shop, 100% crumpet shop. A little pocket with some ledger in here for you and a playing card. And then he loves tea. So his family loves to travel. Japan, Asia, all over, Europe. And all he asks for is a little bit of tea, a little bit of crumpet, and a few treats at night. So this, I actually washed the bag. It is from Japan. My brother brought me back. And it did taste like tea. It was delicious, obviously. So 2 pockets, one up and one down here. Reinforced it with some fabric. And then this is just a side pocket here. You can put other things here. You can. A fun story about the fairy who borrows oatmeal. And so in this back pocket, because especially the brownie elf who loves his biscuits and his tea, has other elfin neighbors throughout Cornwall. And so these are recipe cards that I made you that you can write on the back. Different recipes of biscuits or different teas that you might want to make from the herbs that you're planting. And the neighbor elf over here who gave him the recipes, or the sharing recipes, is just hanging out. Gosh, of all days, of course it's sunny, and of course the gardeners are here. More book page. On the back of that envelope, a real stamp from Hawaii. This was something from Hawaii. This is her daughter when she's not, painting in the wildflowers. They're actually harvesting vegetables that they're growing near the house. And then this is another authentic landscaper's planning page. It's actually wax paper and colored. But since they are along the river, I thought it might be fun for you to plan your different beds. This is a little bit of the paper doily that I placed on the paper as I was eco-dyeing and eco-painting on it. So it's dried right on there. It wasn't even glued, it just dried right on. So this is fun. Here's a few more extra tickets if you want to label things that you're planting or seeds that you're sharing. Emerald beads, since he is from Ireland. Sessile is. This is a bird layout of some of the birds in England. There are falcons, and then of course the house sparrow. So these are the neighbors. These are what do you call this? It was see-through paper, tracing paper, and then I did the glue. I followed Sharon's tutorial. I forget what she calls that. And then this is actually a tab that I haven't glued down. I thought about doing it as a top tuck, but it's a tab / paper clip now. But if you want to glue it down as a tab, top or bottom tuck, just remove the paper clip through the hole there. You've got more of the story of the riverbank from The Wind in the Willows. These are from the Antique British Birds book. Empty seed packets from handmade paper. Oh no, it's losing some of the dried flowers. I'll leave it there. Antique French paper, French ledger. I wish you could, I don't know if you could really hear it. It's awesome. Is a seed book, tomato and vegetable, but I just made it into a journal card, plus a couple pages from my tomato notepad, because I'm all about the vegetables. And then I watercolored a couple of these sweet tomatoes, but the red, I guess it's a little more of a matte. It's probably the watercolor paper that I chose. It's so heavy duty. So that's part of the altered paper clip. Japanese papers, the skeleton or the negatives from the die cuts. That was part of a seed packet. You could actually do calligraphy or fountain pen on these super fine Japanese papers my brother brought back. More antique French accounting paper pages. This one is cotton rag. I mean, there's no year, but I know it's probably older than the 1700s. It's pretty amazing. It's super thin but durable at the same time and absorbent. Little glassine with more book page. It's actually more like a double pocket, but it's pretty fragile, this glassine. It's old, so if it kind of rips a little, it might be okay. But, oh, that's right. If I use photo corners, just take it out. Take it out, replace it, repair it. More eco dye, cotton rag paper, labels. Oh, I need to make copies of these. These are French recipes for jams. Preserves. Using fig, rhubarb, fig, prune. Make copies. This is another journal card. Belly band using one of the skeletons. I went ahead and put one of my handmade paper leaf as your specimen here. Empty seed packet that you could share seeds with friends or vice versa. Some ideas on different vegetables that you could grow around the raised bed garden, around the kitchen back. And then this is another tab, and I just attached a leaf to it. Signatures for me are usually individual leaves, basically one page folded. So this is what I call a typical signature when I'm doing my big bookbinding. It's one page folded in half. I call that a leaf, and then I sew each individually. But in some cases, for these thinner ones, like the Japanese papers, I did layer them between a couple of stronger cotton rag. So some of the signatures actually have several pages in it. Die cuts, antique French cotton ticking, Dutch paper by way of Norway. And then I love the oranges. Some pages of the original book. Oh. So the fabrics that I used to bind a lot of the papers were meant to create bulk in the middle so that as I filled it, it didn't get too alligator mouth, but that didn't work anyway. So here's the original book pages, a couple of them from the physiology book, and behind this is the year, what does that say? 1897? 67. Oh, 1897. And then the preface, a couple of pages. You could always do your gesso and write over that if you like. A belly band using some of the clear packaging so that you could use it as a pocket for dried flowers or pressed flowers. So information on plants that you might be putting in and around the kitchen garden. This opens up to the rest of the document, and then on the back, let's see, die cuts, papers for you to sketch, and the Sweet Daughter. This is actually a small waxed version of the canvas painting that was more towards the front, so that's that first daughter, Molly. But I like this antique French paper. It looks like someone was building a house or a plot with trees, roof, maybe a garden line, and then some writing on the side. Again, it's some of that amazing cotton rag. And this envelope here could be a seed bag, and I left a spot for you to sketch. I love, I still watch a lot of Ira's rustic journals, and she would do these layers, and then her daughter would do a sketch, and I did a couple of sketches, like the crumpet shop, and you'll see a couple of loose herb drawings. But I always feel shy about putting some of my artwork in here, so that's for you with some inspiration and some ideas on what else you can plant, like artichokes. I think every garden should have artichokes if you can grow them. Another way to put your pressed flowers or leaves, it's just waxed paper, and then the die cut negative, that's what it is. This one is just created as a tuck so that you can still see the beautiful French numbers, because again, this is antique, probably 1700s. I haven't seen the date on this one, but look how small the writing gets, and amazing. Like, wow. So this stain came with it, but and it works so perfectly because it almost looks like a pea pod or something. And then a little bit of eco dye fabric from Sessile, and then my die cuts. Just find it. A book page from Let's Go Outside. It's a vintage children's book page. It's actually about a worm, but I was more focused on the dandelions, or are those dandelions or daisies? So that's what I put here, a dandelion. And I didn't glue it all the way down, just so it shows you some of the texture of a dandelion. But there's the worm. Of course we need our worms in a garden. Another book page, datet, painting, journal card, the son and daughter helping harvest in the garden, French book magazine page. I don't recall the year. I just like the colors, and on the back of it, is there a year here? No. A post about your garden chores, and what's time for seeding and sowing. Antique, nope, 1940 is vintage. Diary pages. These are very buttery pages, so I like writing on them, and whoever owned them was short on words. Ate dinner and went out. Altered paperclip, some Norwegian bank accounting tape. On the back, I was trying to practice some of my basil for you. Didn't look good, but the numbers look good, and it is Norwegian, I think, so, and vintage, so it's kind of cool to have that there. Some of the numbers spent on the seeds. Altered paper clip with some of the dies, your tab, and then on the front is actually a little elf helping the girl harvest, and this is actually a altered paper clip Norwegian No. This comes from one of the old elf book pages, elf books that I found. It just was a random piece of paper. And then this just kind of tucks there. You'll see this is the river that the home is on. So in the front, I had the home here, and this is north, east, west, south. So the home was sitting here where the flowers are. And this is your Tamar River, and it flows down into the ocean. So a lot more of the hills up here, and then this is more of a meadow down below. Again, they have a climate where they can raise a lot of crops because it's a milder winter, not too hot. Tab, that's how it looks. Inside, you could plot your own garden and the different seeds that you'll be planting in different areas, and you could do anything actually. I'm just giving suggestions since it's not my book, even though I designed it to be like how I like to journal for my garden notes. I'll fix that later. Little pocket, there's the rest of the river. That is Sessile, maybe a few years after he followed the family to England. And then here is a book page from one of those elf books. This does lay flat, but some of the pages that are shorter won't stay open. So if you have a clip, or this is one of my favorites, it's just a tassel, French tassel. It seems to work. But I thought it was very telling. Fairy folks are in old oaks. Of course, Sessile doesn't look quite as old or crinkly as they do. Some old wrapping paper, die cuts. Aline Covine. Many of us use her fabrics. Another pocket I just left empty, but obviously you can use for anything. Some of the fish in London. This is a cigarette card. Or not London, England, I mean. Excuse me. I believe. Is this one of the English ones? Oh no. This is the... And then more images of the children harvesting. That might be a little fairy. Elves, whether they're brownies, of course there are pixie characters and other elf characters throughout the forest in Cornwall. More French documents, book pages, and then this is a Japanese paper my brother brought back. It's actually for calligraphy, but fountain pen works really well on it too. So this was me attempting to practice for you before I put it in there. Again, it's on the back of that Norwegian accounting tape. YouTube, Shada Campbell. And she has all these super fast tutorials on sketching, watercolors from simple to a little more advanced and shading. So I've been following her a lot on Patreon. I do the $3 a month thing. Excuse me, and she teaches you how to watercolor tulips. I actually like her tutorials. I've been following her for maybe 6 years now. She's from Canada. I actually have a garden and art journal, and I followed her tutorial. So for some of these pages that are older, you can do a lot with these different pages. You know, whether you're using, this was acrylic and watercolor and a little bit of pen on more modern scrapbook paper. But for some of these vintage eco-dyed and coffee-stained papers, just the same. So you can use it or use the rest of the scraps on the back to sketch your own or sketch on the front. This tab here, let's see, is actually a torn cornmeal bag. I don't remember who I got it from. You can maybe just use it like that because it does stand. So, ta-da! Or you could just use it as a tab in the actual journals. Journaling paper that I eco-dyed, more die cuts. I love fabric stapled a few of these Danish papers for you, Danish or Norwegian papers. It was an office pack full of papers, and you can just totally draw or write on the back, and they're really smooth. This one I haven't glued down, so if you want to put your label or something dried back there, and then maybe cut up some of your plastic just to be able to protect whatever it is you're pressing. I did put some eco-dyed coffee wax paper back here just because I love the staining. Your journaling, and then more of the kids doing some gardening, obviously, so you could have either way displayed. This is a French envelope. I love my envelopes. They are stiff though, so, but it's empty. But I do have this little book page envelope full of more die cuts that you could use and lay around. So, there we go. More stacked papers, Danish, antique French cotton rag. This is awesome. Probably some of the thickest paper I've ever felt. More French cotton rag, antique. Look at that writing. I'll try to zoom. It's awesome. How tiny are those numbers? And the fact that it barely bled. The ink barely bled through. More of the cotton rag, French cotton rag. And then this is just some Danish or Norwegian office paper. Some of this, what do you call this tape? It is tape, pet tape, in case there are other things you want to lay down, dried flowers or seeds, just in the envelope there. It was the original sketch that I had to create the snowdrops. It didn't work to trace it on here, so I just kept looking at my own sketch to do the stitch work. More of the negatives from the dies that I put throughout the book. This is some eco dye from Sagita. She used breast and some other elements here, so it looks a lot like the fabric that I purchased from her. I think this might have been a wax or baking paper. And then some more of the vintage Dutch, no, this is French schoolwork paper. French schoolwork paper, all from Sarah. Some just very ethereal forest papers. I didn't print these, I purchased these. There's the back, and then it just looks, Sagita's coffee stain, or eco staining, looks like a tree bark right here, so it's so fitting. This is the original spine from the book, the children's book. A little bit of a vintage fabric that I just glued on a little bit of a patchwork. This is how I attached the original back cover of the original book, children's book, and they drew on the back too. So I cleaned it up, Clorox, cleaned, disinfected, and then I only did the matte gel medium on the edges so that it wouldn't fray, so it's super hard. But they drew the church, maybe, or the Catholic school. And then there's that same, I don't know if it's an ostrich, a turkey, or I don't know, the bird that was on the front that I mostly covered with the stitches. There he is, but it's a different kid. I don't know what that name is, Evelyn maybe? And then there's Johnny, and some other names. And then these are the two kids, kids that Sessile is helping watch and help teaching to grow the garden. And it's just tucked in the back. Hopefully this flip through wasn't too long, but I love the back, especially when the seeds are on the back. It's almost like a whole nother book. I was so happy to be able to save this antique book. Spine, alligator mouth, everything sticking out, tabs. So I hope you liked it. It is for sale. I'll go ahead and DM me on Instagram if you're following me there, Jador Le Papier. If it doesn't sell directly on Instagram, then I'll probably go ahead and list it on my Etsy or something. Of course, Etsy has all their fees, the taxes. I do send it via priority and insurance, etc. But I hope you like that, and I'll be back soon. There might be more elf characters coming soon, but I am determined to finish that very last Dior book. I just needed a creative break. So thanks for joining me, and happy spring, and I'll see you soon. This is the Observer's Book of British Wildflowers and British Birds. Pretty awesome color and black and white plates here on this one. And I think this was 1940s version, and then this one, of course, the color plates and black and white.